Most of the commands that you'll be using in PowerShell scripts are called cmdlets. They're a little bit different from the types of commands we ran in Bash, where each command was either a built-in command in Bash, and the Bash process code would simply execute the command, or they were external programs that Bash would start a new process for and run the code for that program. Cmdlets are dynamically loaded into PowerShell. They come from the .NET libraries on the system and other modules you may choose to install and or write your own. They're lightweight commands in that they execute in the PowerShell process even though they load the code when they need to, as opposed to having it built in at all times. That makes them lightweight because they load fast and they're very extendable. New processes are not required to actually run cmdlets. There are thousands of cmdlets built into PowerShell. You can make your own very, very easily by writing functions with specific code at the start to tell PowerShell that your function should be treated as a cmdlet. You can create your own loadable modules by combining functions into module files and have a whole library of your own personalized commands available in PowerShell. All cmdlet names, parameter names, and of course file names in PowerShell are case insensitive. You can do them uppercase, lowercase, mixed case, and it doesn't matter. Cmdlets, because there are so many, have a particular format to their name that helps you to keep them organized and identify the ones that you wish. Since they come essentially from the .NET libraries, or in large portion do, they are dependent on the version of .NET you have installed, and of course on which version of the operating system you have, as that also affects what's in your .NET libraries and what's built into your PowerShell. Changing your .NET version without changing the version of PowerShell you're running can still change how your scripts operate if you happen to use commands that are affected by the update in the version of .NET. Similarly, keeping the same version of .NET while updating the PowerShell command may also change what is available or how it functions. The same version of PowerShell with the same version of .NET on a different version of Windows may also have subtle differences. It's important to test your commands in the environment you plan to run them in if they affect the system. The general format for the cmdlets is verb-noun. We saw this when we ran our get-host command, where get is the verb and host is the noun, and there's a dash in between. It's all one word. There is a list of well-known verbs, and you can actually see that list using the command get-verb, which will of course display all the verbs that are loaded into memory right now. If we go ahead and run that command, we'll find that it produces a fairly long list of verbs and what category of verb they are. They're organized into categories. When you create your own cmdlets, you should try to use the well-known verbs for your own personal command names. That makes it easier for people to know what your commands are expected to do and how they're going to go doing them. You will find that lots of these kinds of commands will produce lots of output, and you can scroll through it, or if you wish to just see it one screenful at a time, we can do the same thing we were able to do in Bash by taking our command and piping it to the more command to see our output one screenful at a time. When you get the more prompt, press space to see the next screenful. At any time, you can press the Q for quit to quit scrolling through the output and throw away the rest of the output. The nouns are defined by whoever created the commandlets that are in the system. So since many of the commandlets, most of them really, come from .NET, the nouns are the .NET nouns. And the noun normally indicates the thing you're working on, whereas the verb says what you're trying to do with it. So for our get-host commandlet, the thing we're trying to do is get things. And the things we're trying to get from is the host. In this context, host does not mean the machine. It means the PowerShell process, because that's the host for the command you're running. When you use commands like getVerb, they're displaying the information that's been loaded into process memory. In other words, the commandlets that have already been loaded into RAM by the running PowerShell process. In any given PowerShell process, you can invoke commands that cause additional modules to load, which gives you extra commands. If you rerun getVerb after loading new modules, you may find that you have new verbs available, additional verbs. When you create your own commandlets, use the well-known verbs whenever you can. The nouns that you use should either be the existing nouns if the commands you're doing are working with existing system entities, ones for which names are known, or if these are for your own objects that you're creating, your own data items, you should invent your own noun that refers to and describes these new objects you're creating. To see the nouns that are associated with each verb, there are a couple of different techniques. The simplest one is to use the command for getting help from the system. And when you use that command, you have a choice about how to ask for help. You can ask for help about a specific command or topic, or you can put in a partial command name, and it will instead list for you all the matching help topics. So if we say get help, which is the command for retrieving help, put in a verb like get and dash, and don't tell it the rest of the commandlet we want, it will instead list all the commandlets currently loaded in memory that start with get dash, or whatever verb we've put in. You can also use get help to get information on how to use the help subsystem, or to see any specific command by telling it the command you want to get it for. For example, get help, get host. If we were to do get-help with, for example, the start verb with a dash, we would see a list of all the currently loaded commandlets that begin with start dash. If you see the green block flashing across the top of your screen, that's PowerShell retrieving additional help information to help display the output that you asked for. But you can clearly see here we have a list of all of the commandlets that begin with start dash. It's a quick way to find the list. In our next video, we'll talk more about getting help from the system.